But I'll begin by saying that narcissism at its very core is a very shame-based personality. There's the shame of being an error, being flawed somehow, not being special, not being unique. The thought of someone else knowing something they don't, they think that exposes some kind of flaw in them, some kind of weakness. And a lot of the behavior is aimed at protecting themselves from those feelings of shame. When I say that, it's just come to mind. I've said this a few times as well. This is a curious kind of paradox with narcissistic people. It is a very shame-based disorder, and yet they would behave in the most shameful of ways to try and escape feelings of shame. Hence the incredible illnesses, hence the outrage, the temper tantrums, the outrageous lies, and so on. They will behave in very shameful ways to try to escape feelings of shame. So it's a bit of a feedback loop. It kind of feeds off itself, and the deeper the hole they dig, the more they keep on digging. So if you think of a narcissistic person as wearing like an emotional suit of armor, that suit of armor keeps reality at bay. Again, the reality that they're no more entitled than anyone else. They have to earn things just like everyone else. So the suit of armor protects them from reality. Now, in that suit of armor, if you imagine all they can see, there's just like a little narrow slit. That's what they look out. And that's all they can see is what's in front of them. Find it very hard to see the bigger picture. Reality has to be rejected. If reality were to leak in, if it were to seep in, you might get what's known as a narcissistic collapse. And a lot of their defense mechanisms are very maladaptive. They're mechanisms that were learned at a very, very young age. They're still being played out today. The biggest one, I think, would be denial. Denial is I believe, a very sort of like childlike kind of defense mechanism. If you imagine a little child, a little toddler, about 3-4 years of age, whatever, a little kid, and you walk into the room and you can see chocolate and cream and sticky stuff. It's rubbed all over the carpet and all over the walls and so on. They're covered in it. And you say to them, "Did you make that mess?" It's the first thing they say. They look at you and they go, "No." That's denial. And it is kind of ridiculous because you can see. With narcissistic people, it could be the same. They could have, jam all over their face, chocolate all over their face. And you say, "Did you eat that?" And they'll go, "No." So denial, it's very childlike kind of defense mechanism, very maladaptive defense mechanism. And a lot of their defense mechanisms are maladaptive. Things like the distraction, things like the blame shifting, a lot of the excuses. If it wasn't for this, or what about the time you did whatever, they're all aimed at shifting attention away from what they have done. Because if they were to acknowledge it, again, it would bring up this intense feeling of shame. If their rage, their narcissistic rage doesn't get them out of it, if they're rolling about the floor in front of you performing some kind of incredible illness, doesn't get them out of it, again, they'll go into a very shame-based depression, which is why sometimes they might do something that, you're not happy with, it's hurtful, whatever, and you bring it up. You'll find they'll say something like, "But I did this for you, or I made you coffee, or I gave you a lift into work," or whatever it is. Now, sometimes that is about, again, shifting the focus away, but other times in their mind, they really do genuinely believe that they have undone whatever it was they did to hurt you. That now cancels it out. In fact, that should cancel out everything they've ever done. So again, they're looking through this little narrow slit. Reality is being rejected. Reality doesn't get through. And they're only really seeing the things, if you will, that they want to see, or hearing the things they want to hear. Anything that goes against their narrative, anything that they don't approve of, everything they don't like, it gets rejected somehow. Now, sometimes it's going to be ignored. Sometimes it will be criticized. Sometimes there will be, ridicule and scorn, whatever it is, just to protect that very fragile and false sense of self within that suit of armor. So looking at some of the traits, you see things like the sense of entitlement. They believe that they're special and unique. They are entitled to special treatment. They deserve only the best. And if you're in a friendship or a relationship with them, there shouldn't really be room for anyone else because they need all of your attention. So moving on, you have the sense of superiority. This is the thing about a narcissistic relationship. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship or a working relationship or whatever. A relationship with a narcissistic person is not a partnership of equals. That relationship kind of looks like this. They're up here and you're down here. And that's how it has to stay. They're always looking down and getting stuff for you. You have to aim up. You're always having to aim upwards in order to please them or to keep on elevating them. Some will even behave as if they're doing you a favor just by being in your company. You know, they're your friend, they're dating you, they married you, whatever it was, and they will behave as if you owe them something. They are doing you a favor. So it's not a true partnership as such, and it's certainly not a partnership of equals, which is one of the reasons why you will get a lot of undermining, a lot of criticism, a lot of devaluing, a lot of diminishing, a lot of ignoring things that are important to you, whether you're struggling, whether you're pleased with something, whatever. They don't really pay a lot of attention to it because it's not really on their radar. The difference is when it comes to them, they feel good about something, you have to feel good as well. You should be celebrating with them. You're supposed to be envious, okay? You're supposed to admire them. You are supposed to feel good by being in their company or being associated with them. Just like if they're struggling with something, if they're annoyed at something, bothered by something, if they're, in trouble or whatever it is, it's like you and everybody else have to stop what you're doing and do what you can to support them, to make things better for them. They are the center of the universe. When another person achieves something or starts to get positive regard from others, that can bring out their envy, both the envy and the jealousy, which are two different things, but they often go together when it comes to narcissism. And what I mean by that is envy is what we feel whenever we see somebody with something we don't have, or they're more accomplished, they can do something we can't. We can feel envy. Not necessarily in a bad way, in the sense that that envy could inspire us, but with narcissism, it's more like that green-eyed monster. So it's the envy, somebody has something they don't have, can do something they can't. They're getting attention that they're not. The jealousy is what you feel whenever you fear you're going to lose something or someone to someone else. When someone is maybe getting positive regard or whatever, there is the envy that they are getting the positive regard, but also that positive regard has been taken from them. It was theirs by right, they're superior, and they're entitled. So someone is getting praise, whatever it is, the envy and the jealousy kicks in. Again, that's where you get a lot of the undermining, a lot of the diminishing, sometimes the vitriol, the scorn, and things like that. What they don't necessarily see is there's room for everybody, but there's that fear that this is being taken from them and it's being taken from them unfairly. They have a constant need for attention. They have a constant need for people to validate that they are amazing, special, or no one's ever had to suffer the way they have. And they did such an amazing job, and their toys are the brightest and the shiniest, and so on. They need others to validate that. They also need other people to collude with them, to collude with their fantasies, to collude with their delusions, to collude with this version that they have created for themselves. They need people to believe in that and to collude with it. If your attention is off them for whatever reason, then you're bad. For instance, if you're maybe even just talking to someone else, which you sometimes get an accusation that you're planning to have an affair or something. Because this is the thing about narcissism. I think narcissism cannot exist within that little suit of armor they're wearing. Narcissistic people need other people to validate them, collude with them, and so on. Without that, again, they go into a narcissistic collapse. I said a couple of years ago, something I've started to revisit recently. Narcissism cannot exist without enablers of some kind. Now, even if those enablers are naive or well-meaning, to give them what they want, to tell them the things they want to hear. But lastly, there would be the lack of empathy. And there are different levels to this, I would say. There are different kinds of empathy. There's cognitive empathy. So Narcissistic people would have cognitive empathy. They do recognize things like happiness, sadness, joy. They can pick up on things. They know what makes people happy. They know what makes people unhappy. It's not the empathy that comes with sympathy and compassion. Narcissistic people do tend to struggle with intimacy. I'm talking about emotional intimacy here. They do tend to struggle with intimacy. A lot of their relationships are transactional. A lot of them are surface level, superficial. So there's no real emotional depth because you can't really get through that suit of armor, that emotional suit of armor that they're wearing. So if you're feeling bad, you're upset, you need some kind of help or support, they might fear that you're requiring something from them. You're going to take something from them. Again, that's when they can come across sometimes as cold, uncaring, or they might tell you why it's your fault in the first place you're feeling this way. If you're feeling bad because of something they have done, again, they're not going to take responsibility for that. Again, it's going to be because of you. It is your reaction. I liken it this way. It's like somebody's throwing stones at you and they're telling you it's not me that's hurting you, it's the stones, or it's your reaction to the stones. It's nothing to do with them. So there is that lack of empathy there. Going back to if they're doing something to make you feel bad, it's like if they were to validate your pain or validate your experience, again, their defense mechanisms aren't going to allow them to do that because that's going to bring up the shame. They're flawed. They have done something bad. To validate you might feel as if they are invalidating themselves. And that's going to hurt too much. It's bad enough when other people start pointing out their stuff. And even though it's bouncing off the armor, it just won't get through. To do that themselves is going to be far too painful. They might go into collapse. And a lot of the defense mechanisms are there to protect them from the collapse and so on.